Today, I'm diving into two Reuters articles that spotlight international strides in hydrogen development. First, I'll explore how Deutsche ReGas is harnessing EU funding to make Lubmin, Germany, a hydrogen powerhouse. Then, we'll zoom to China to unpack Sinopec's $690 million venture capital fund aimed at fueling hydrogen innovation. We'll wrap up with a sharp focus on what the U.S. must do to challenge China and Germany, leveraging low-cost, low-carbon intensity hydrogen production to stay ahead in the global hydrogen economy, with a nod to natural hydrogen powering ammonia production in the Midwest. All cost estimates per kilogram of hydrogen are sourced from the U.S. Department of Energy, the International Energy Agency, and Bloomberg NEF, aligning with industry benchmarks. All this on today's Hydrogen Podcast. Let's start with the Reuters article from May 21st titled, Deutsche ReGas Gets EU Funding for Lubmin Hydrogen Project. This piece showcases Europe's bold hydrogen ambitions as Deutsche ReGas, which is a private energy infrastructure developer, secures 112 million euros, or roughly $127 million, in public grants from the European Union's Hydrogen Bank, part of a 992 million euro auction backing 15 projects across 5 countries. This funding targets decarbonization of industries that pump out about 1 billion metric tons of CO2 annually, or 30% of EU emissions. The Lubmin project, perched on Germany's Baltic Sea coast, is a strategic gem, tapping offshore wind farms to power electrolysis using Baltic Sea water, producing hydrogen with emissions below 0.45 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per kilogram, a benchmark for low CI production. Lubmin's history as a liquefied natural gas terminal during the 2022 energy crisis, now shifted to Mukran, makes it a ready-made hub for hydrogen. Its proximity to Germany's planned hydrogen core transport network, rolling out from 2025 to 2032, ensures seamless delivery to industrial powerhouses like steel and chemical plants. Economically, the 112 million euro grant is a lifeline, offsetting the $4 to $6 per kilogram cost of electrolytic hydrogen, per DOE and IEA estimates, compared to hydrocarbon-derived hydrogen via steam methane reforming at $1 to $2 per kilogram, which emits 10 to 12 kilograms of CO2 without CCS. The grant covers 20 to 30% of the project's $400 to $600 million capital cost for a 200 to 500 megawatt electrolyzer plant producing 40 to 100 tons daily, narrowing the cost gap and aligning with Europe's goal to make low CI hydrogen competitive, potentially hitting $2 to $3 per kilogram by 2030 if renewable electricity drops to $20 to $30 per megawatt hour. This per Bloomberg NEF. The project leverages economies of scale, with electrolyzers at $1,000 to $2,000 per kilowatt, and Germany's robust grid minimizes losses. Technologically, Lubmin will likely deploy proton exchange membranes or alkaline electrolyzers consuming 50 to 60 kilowatt hours per kilogram at 60 to 70% efficiency. Challenges include boosting electrolyzer lifespan beyond 20 to 30,000 hours and managing water purification, adding 10 to 20 cents per kilogram. Integration with 200 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030 ensures stable renewable input, but grid balancing systems costing $10 to $20 million are critical for wind's variability. Lubmin could decarbonize 100,000 to 200,000 tons of CO2 annually, setting a blueprint for EU hydrogen hubs and showing how subsidies can bridge economic barriers for clean hydrogen. Now let's get to the Reuters article from May 29th titled, Sinopec Sets Up $690 Million Hydrogen Energy-Focused Venture Capital Fund. This move by China's state-owned oil and gas titan Sinopec is a blockbuster bet on hydrogen, launching a $5 billion yuan or $690 million fund, China's largest dedicated to the hydrogen value chain. Managed by Sinopec Private Equity Fund Management Company with partners like Shandong New Growth Drivers Fund and Yantai Guofeng Investments, the fund targets early-stage investments in advanced materials like electrolyzer membranes, core equipment like PEM electrolyzers, and proprietary technologies for production and storage. Sinopec's hydrogen portfolio is already formidable, with stakes in 13 hydrogen-related companies, 11 fuel cell supply centers, and 114 refueling stations across China, dwarfing the U.S.'s 60 stations. With $4.6 billion slated for investment by 2025 and a goal of 500,000 tons of renewable hydrogen capacity, Sinopec could power 5 million fuel cell electric vehicles annually. The fund aims to nurture 10 to 20 startups, potentially valued at $100 to $500 million each by 2030, this per Bloomberg NEF projections, amplifying China's hydrogen dominance. Economically, the $690 million fund tackles hydrogen's cost hurdles, particularly for electrolysis, which Sinopec aims to scale from $4 to $6 per kilogram to $2 to $3 per kilogram per DOE and IEA data. Investments in proton-conducting membranes costing $100 to $200 per square meter could slash electrolyzer costs by 20 to 30%, pushing capital expenses below $1,000 per kilowatt. Equipment investments like high-pressure storage tanks address the 50 cents to $1 per kilogram transport cost, making hydrogen competitive with SMR-derived hydrogen at $1 to $2 per kilogram. China's 144 refueling stations, each at $2 to $3 million, signal infrastructure commitment with plans for 1,000 by 2030 requiring $2 to $3 billion. Technologically, Sinopec targets efficiency gains with PEM electrolyzers, aiming for 70 to 80% efficiency and 40 to 50 kilowatt hours per kilogram. Challenges include scaling rare earth catalysts, adding $50 to $100 per kilowatt, and extending stack durability beyond 30,000 hours. Proprietary tech investments could yield breakthroughs like solid oxide electrolysis using waste heat to hit 40 kilowatt hours per kilogram, or compression systems cutting storage losses by 10 to 15%. Sinopec's manufacturing muscle, producing 1 gigawatt of electrolyzer capacity annually, and state-backed funding position China to supply 10 to 15% of global hydrogen by 2035, decarbonizing 50 to 100 million tons of CO2 annually. So how can the U.S. challenge China and Germany to avoid being left behind in the hydrogen dust? The One Big Beautiful Act, or H.R. 1, passed May 22nd, repealing Section 45E Clean Hydrogen Production Tax Credit. It's a wake-up call to prioritize economics-driven, low-cost, low-CI hydrogen production. Steam methane reforming with CCS, natural hydrogen, and methane pyrolysis, all at $1 to $2 per kilogram, this per DOE, IEA, and Bloomberg NEF. To compete, the U.S. must leverage its vast hydrocarbon infrastructure and geological resources, doubling down on SMR with CCS, which captures 90 to 95% of emissions and uses the 45Q credit, which is at right now at $85 per ton or 50 cents to $1 per kilogram, to match China's cost competitiveness as seen in CF Industries' $100 to $150 million CCS earnings. Natural hydrogen at 50 cents to $1 per kilogram is a U.S. trump card, with Coloma's Midwest and Gulf Coast pilots potentially yielding 1 to 5 million tons by 2030 for $10 to $50 million per site, undercutting Germany's $4 to $6 electrolytic hydrogen. Methane pyrolysis, producing solid carbon, avoids CO2 emissions, with monolith materials facilities generating $500 to $1,000 per ton of carbon, offering a revenue stream to rival Sinopec's innovation funding. A strategic move is deploying natural hydrogen for Midwest ammonia production, challenging Germany's industrial decarbonization and China's supply chain dominance. Ammonia, consuming 1 to 2 million tons of hydrogen annually in Iowa, Nebraska, and Illinois, could use natural hydrogen at 50 cents to $1 per kilogram to save farmers $100 to $200 million yearly, cutting 5 to 10 million tons of CO2 and creating 1,000 to 2,000 jobs. The U.S. must accelerate public-private partnerships like California's Arches Hub to invest $10 to $15 billion in 1,000 refueling stations by 2030, matching China's infrastructure pace. Senate revisions to H.R. 1, potentially raising 45Q to $100 per ton, could amplify SMR CCS, while domestic manufacturing initiatives, inspired by Germany's grid integration, can counter China's 1 gigawatt electrolyzer output, with Nel Hydrogen's plants creating 500 to 1,000 jobs each. By 2030, these methods could supply 60 to 70% of U.S. hydrogen demand, which is projected to be 20 million tons, positioning the U.S. to compete globally in a lean, low-CI hydrogen economy. All right, that's it for me, everyone. If you have a second, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a good review on whatever platform it is that you listen to. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, whatever it is. That would be a tremendous help to the show. And as always, if you ever have any feedback, you're welcome to email me directly at info@thehydrogenpodcast.com. So until next time, keep your eyes up and honor one another.